Well, hello everyone. My name is Wendy. I am a content creator. I work in ministry. I do all kinds of things. I teach Pilates, and I am just now venturing into the YouTube space, which is kind of uncomfortable for me. I'm very comfortable with watching videos, but not posting. I post shorts and then I get out of here, usually. There's a few videos of mine up, but not many in detail. And I think I may have done one or two about the subject that I am getting ready to share with you guys about, which is an aspect of my marriage. And I'll get into that later. Well, just a little bit of background about myself. I am a mother of 3 living and 1 daughter who is transitioned into heaven. They are all 18 and over, all of my children, and in college currently. So there's a lot going on with my life. I was married. I got married at the age of 23. That marriage lasted about 17 years. We divorced right before we got to 18 years, and we were in relationship for about 20 plus years. And this testimony is kind of hard for me to share. I've never really verbalized it, and I've always been very protective of the space that I live in and just my personal life. So this is very hard for me to share. So with that being said, I was nudged last week by the Lord to share my testimony, and I was prompted by a friend, a sister in Christ, that we were at the same church for a little bit together. We sang together and that sort of thing, but she shared her testimony, and I can link that below because it was a powerful testimony about how the Lord delivered her from sex and porn addiction, how she's now a young mother, expecting another baby, married, and all of the things. And she has a very beautiful testimony of triumph and victory and just progress in the Lord. And I was watching her story, and I wasn't thinking about the things that I had gone through at all. I was literally just really rejoicing with her. And when it was over, maybe a day or two later, the Lord said that it was time for me to release my testimony. Now, I had shared it before and I got a little bit of slack, so I kind of veered away from it, was kind of overprotective of my children and that sort of thing. So I didn't really pursue, really diving into the topic of domestic violence and being in an abusive relationship, which that took me a while to realize that I was in an abusive relationship, which is a whole nother video. But the Lord wanted me to kind of share some points of my testimony. Of course, I can't get into all of that right now, but for what the Lord wants me to share, I will share that with you guys. So, like I said, I got married at the age of 23. We got together when I was about 17, 18 years old. We both grew up in church. My father's a pastor. His grandfather's a pastor. My dad would preach at his grandfather's church. We ran by each other because he was younger than me, so I really didn't pay a lot of attention to him. But as we grew up, we kind of reconnected, and the rest is history, right? So, the relationship between our families was amazing. The relationship between us in the beginning was amazing. We were young. None of us was really serious about God. We just would go to church. But, as life progressed and things would happen, I started to get closer to God and he started to get further from God. And that's when literally all hell started to break loose. Now, we did have periods of time where we lived in like peace and progress, and we were living for the Lord and that sort of thing. But after the transition of my oldest daughter, who did pass away from cancer, there was a great decline in his faith and a great surge in mine. And you could literally see us split from that, which is unfortunately very common for marriages and couples who have, experienced child loss. Now, I will say that there were things in the beginning before her getting sick, before her transitioning, that merited divorce on my part. But because I was a woman of faith and still am a woman of great prayer, I went to therapy and counseling, and we were counseled back together and encouraged to stay together. So that was that. And actually, the first signs of abuse were like early in our courtship, so to speak. And, he chilled out. I didn't really see any of that. Any of the fights that we would have would be like arguments, and they would be ugly, but kind of typical for the culture that we were in, which is not okay, but not enough for me to feel like, oh, I'm in an abusive relationship. Maybe a little toxic, but not abusive. So that was the beginning. So when the light bulb started to go off that I was, in a bad, dangerous situation, was maybe 4 years before the divorce. And I will say, add this little caveat, like he was more neglectful than abusive in our relationship, which is and can be really bad for someone dealing with abandonment and rejection, which those are the key areas that the Lord delivered me from as a child. I went through all kinds of things. My father worked a lot. My mother had her own stuff going on, and that kind of left me in this abandoned, neglected state, which I will get into later. But in my marriage, having my husband be gone for like days at a time, sometimes weeks, he would just disappear, literally disappear, nowhere to be found. And I had to exist that way. So when he was home, it was either I was super upset, really angry, or found some kind of peace to just kind of get through, to make the environment safe and conducive to nurture children, which was a challenge, but I did it. And only with the grace of God, though. But it wasn't until maybe about 2012, where he started to drink again really bad. He had drank before, it calmed down, but our daughter passed in 2011. And then in 2012, it went up, right? Didn't seek any help, nothing. He tried to swing that thing out on his own, right? And there were a couple of incidents where he destroyed some of my property, like my phone and some things that, were sacred to me. Like I would have to hide certain things that I was like, this isn't normal, but, we were just trying to make it. And I didn't want to put another loss on my children, Even I found out, during that time frame that he had reconnected with an ex, and they took it there. I could have left him then, but it was a very, very hard season of life for me and my children, and I didn't want to have them lose their dad too, right? So a little bit of time goes on. We move into this new area just so that my kids can continue going to the school that they were in. And it was really bad over there. It wasn't like a bad neighborhood, but it was just, there were bars all around. It was an area suited for post-grad college students, and that, maybe just got new jobs and that sort of thing. It was not a bad area on paper, but it was just clubs and bars were within blocks of where we lived. And it really just fed into what he already had going on, and that escalated. And there was one night in particular, which was the beginning of the end of our marriage, where he came home and I was asleep. I didn't say a word to him. I just stayed asleep, and he bothered me like he was, messing with me to wake me up, which was normal. And, I was completely disgusted because he smelled, he was gross, and he just, wanted what he wanted from his wife at the time. And, I was really knocked out, really asleep. And all of a sudden, I just felt him on top of me. And he was really aggressive. And he started to choke me. And because he was so drunk, I could push him off of me. So I pushed him off of me. And when I climbed out of the bed, stood up, and something in me just said, I started screaming, and he reached for me, grabbed me by my arms, and held me. And all I could do was start calling the name of the Lord. I started calling out the name of Jesus, and I got a moment where I was able to break free and run, literally in my pajamas. I had this pajama set on. It was shorts and a little tank top and no shoes. I grabbed my purse, my keys, my kids. We got in the car. I wrapped them up with blankets. We got in the car and we drove to his grandparents' house, and we sat outside in their driveway. It was the middle of the night, and we didn't go in. The kids had no idea what was going on, and we just sat there until the sun came up. Once the sun came up, I knew he would be knocked out because he would sleep all day long, like he has a disorder. I truly believe. But he would sleep all day long, and it was like he would only get up when the sun was going down. And so we went home, and we went in, and when I say I kept going like nothing happened, I literally kept going like nothing happened. That was the first incident, but it was marred in my brain. This is no longer a safe, loving marriage. It's not just neglectful, but now my life could be in danger. There were a few incidences along the way, but there were moments in there where he had that look. There was a look that would come over his face where I felt like my life was going to be in danger and something was going to happen to me. And that wasn't often, but in between then, which was 2013 until maybe 2015, there were maybe two more incidents where I saw that look. He never put his hands on me, but I did see that look. And again, like I said, his method of abuse was neglect, where he would just stay away. He would refuse money. He would make it hard for me to work. If I had to go to work, he would keep the car. We only had one car because he would wreck the other one. He would steal the keys. He would steal my wallet. He would steal my purse, that sort of thing. Just all kinds of toxic addict behavior, right? So around 2014, 2015, we ended up having to stay in a an extended stay hotel because we were moving, and the place that we were moving into wasn't quite available for us yet. And we ended up staying in there longer than we wanted, but it was a super stressful situation. And we made the best of it. But there was a window where there's always the window of hope where, he's going to change and get better and go to counseling and do all that sort of thing. And, he kept the job. That was another thing. He couldn't keep a steady job. He always lost a job, got fired or quit. that sort of thing. So it was really hard financially for us in many, many ways. But, we hit this window where he was on the up. His business, because he was a mobile barber, his business was on an upswing. He had a lot of clients that brought in a lot of income. And then he had a 9 to 5. So there was a lot of work and a lot of pressure that was on him. I tried to supplement and do the best I could, but like I said, it was very hard to function in that environment. So we finally moved into the new home in 2015, around that era. And from that point on, it might have been like 2016, like the beginning of 2016. I can't really recall exact dates, but I just know when we moved into that house is when literally all hell broke loose. He started to like really party more. Like he was gone. And like I said in the beginning, I don't know if I mentioned this, his stints away were because of what he was doing in the streets, as far as like how he made money. And if you know, you know. And then from that period on, it just became, he was making money in the streets, to he was partying in bars, or just kicking it. Whatever was happening was happening. From my account, I do believe there's never been any proof or of any like drug use. He never brought that around. I never saw it firsthand. I only saw alcohol. But, from his behavior, I know that there are drugs or were drugs involved. Like as far as current day, I'm not really sure how he's living, but I know there's mental illness, emotional illness, and all other kinds of sort of things happening in there. Back to what I was saying. So with that new house, like I said, all hell literally broke loose with that relationship. And it just got progressively worse, to where his anger and outbursts, where he would literally grab me or pin me, that sort of thing. And I just felt scared for my life, to where I would sleep in my kid's room, like barricaded up against the door so he couldn't come in. Because some nights he would come in like yelling and screaming for me. Now, one thing he never, ever did was hit the kids when he was drunk. Now, spanking the kids when we were little, that happened, but it wasn't overboard. He never attacked the kids, especially in one of those moments, which I feel like was one of the reasons why I could stay around longer, because I didn't feel like they were in any danger, even though I know a toxic environment now is dangerous for everyone. But in that frame of mind, I didn't even know I was in an abusive relationship. How about that? Going to therapy really helped. It opened up my eyes. A lot of prayer, a lot of therapy, and I saw how that was not safe for me at all. And it's only by the grace of God that nothing worse happened to me. So that is about the gist of my testimony as far as finding out I was in an abusive marriage. I did eventually leave him around the end of 2017. I was making moves towards divorce. We did divorce. It was finalized, I believe, around the end of 2018. I have the date and all of that. But it was kind of drawn out in between the end of 2017 and 2018 was that whole divorce process with him. And it was ugly. It was really ugly. I had to file a restraining order. Obviously, he destroyed all of my property, my clothes, like everything. He burned it, that sort of thing. But I did not care. I didn't want a dime from him. I just wanted to be free from that. So that is my testimony, my account of what happened. Now, how I got through that with my right mind, peace, and forgiveness in my heart is because of God. And throughout that entire journey, I drew closer to the Lord and I prayed for him to change. But what I didn't realize is that prayer may not change the thing that you are praying for to change, but it is always, always, always going to change you. And it's going to make you into the person that God wants you to be. And I can say without a shadow of a doubt that going through that experience, learning how to pray, has taught me to be the woman that I am. And it is the foundation and platform for the woman that I am going to be. That is all I have for now. I will continue to share incidences in my testimony as the Lord leads. But I hope this touches someone. I hope someone hears this and realizes that you do not have to stay in a situation that God never ordained for you to be in, that is bringing you harm, that is causing danger to you and your children. Make a plan with the Lord, find safety, and leave. I love you. I love you all. Thank you for listening, and I will catch you next time.